Welcome to the Troubled Artist Podcast, Episode 7, Ali Khamseh.
Welcome back to the Troubled Artist Podcast. Today I'm here with Ali Khamseh. Ali is a writer, director, and cinema student from Iran with considerable experience in creating micro-budget films and several documentaries naturally centered around cinema. In addition to filmmaking, Ali writes fiction as well as a substantial amount of nonfiction and academic articles focused on movies and storytelling. Creativity in all its form is at the heart of Ali's life as he strives to leave his mark through every expression of it. And above everything else, Ali is a storyteller. So Ali, thank you so much for being on the show. So before we begin, I do like to ask this one question. Tell us, in your own words, who is Ali Khamseh?
Well, that is a hard question. First of all, thank you for having me. I am so glad to be on the show. Well, that is a hard question to answer because at some point there is a line that I don't want to cross between bragging and being truthful. I think what you said actually does explain who I am pretty well. But if I wanted to say it in one word, is that I am an avid cinema student. Like, even though I've made movies, even though I've written about it, even though I kind of work in it, I am, at the end of the day, still a cinema student. Like, I am still learning from movies. I'm still watching them with the same eye that a student would. And so I guess that's it. Cinema makes up a whole bunch of my life. My degrees are in cinema, my university degrees. My life revolves around movies, either making them, talking about them, reviewing them, or just writing about them. So yeah, I guess in one word, cinema.
That's great to hear because I am also a fellow cinema student. Well, I actually graduated from DePaul University in Chicago back in 2021. So I majored in film and television
Right.
with a concentration in directing. So I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, like I love filmmaking and meeting a bunch of people and getting to network. Is such a great thing. I am curious to know just like how you got into film in the first place. Was it something that was very early on, or just tell us about that?
Well, to be honest, I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller. Like, stories from as far as I can remember interested me. At first, I thought that meant history. I used to be too much into history, specifically like certain events. I used to read a lot about them. I still have that obsessive nature when it comes to certain things. But at first, I thought I was going to be a historian. Now, when I say I thought, it might feel like I was 16 or something. No, I was 9. I wanted to be a historian. And then I thought, why should I limit myself to history when I can be a novelist? And all of that kind of changed. I remember the exact date. It was in 2012 when I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Sergio Leone. And at that moment, I thought to myself that I don't want to do written words. I want to make movies. I want to do what that movie did. Because at that point, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I'm sure for people who have not seen it, go ahead and definitely watch it. But it's something that, I'm sorry if it sounds elitist or anything like that, no book can do. It does something that no book in its core can do, which is just shows you the story. It doesn't tell you anything. Like, it's hard to convey that. I don't think if you wrote it down, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly doesn't actually have a good story at the heart of it. It's 3 guys looking for money. But the way it shows you in all of its little details is what makes it so uniquely cinematic. And at that point, I thought like, oh, I wanted to do that. I completely changed my trajectory in life. I was actually studying to be an architect at the time because in Iran, you have to choose a major for your high school. I was studying math at the time. And I sort of changed it. I went to art and then I went to university for directing.
Nice. That's really cool. Like how you were able to like know that moment of when you saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's really cool. Just like how like how a moment like that can like determine like the rest of your life or what you want to focus on. For me, I mean, there's so many things, obviously, like I, love to watch films as well as making them. One of the films that I always mention is The Revenant with Leonardo
Mm.
DiCaprio. That was back in
Yes,
2015.
yes.
Such a great film. Yeah, Alejandro Gianniarritu is one of my favorite directors, also doing Birdman and Amores Perros, so very, very talented director. And then, of course, Spielberg and Martin Scorsese, like just to name a few, So there's so many different people that I take inspiration from, just like little things like that, and try to go and make my own thing. So I do want to get into some of the questions that I have written for you. So being from Iran, like how has Iranian culture influenced your storytelling approach?
To be honest, I think the biggest influence that I got from Iranian culture is something that is kind of hard to explain, but I try my best, is that one of the reasons Iranian culture has sustained so much in history is through double meaning. Basically, we've had three major invasions, like culture changing invasions throughout our history, which was Alexander the Great, then the Islamic invasion, then the Mongol invasion. Three invasions that at the time when they attacked some place, they completely uprooted the culture and changed it. But in Iran, it sort of persevered because of double meaning. Basically, you say something and you mean something else. Basically, standing in front of someone, insulting them to their face, and making sure they think like you're complimenting them. And one of the things in that culture that you learn from a very early age is that nothing is what it seems like. Nothing is going to be the same thing you imagine. And that's the biggest thing I think Iranian culture has given me is that feeling that, oh, nothing is going to be what you think it is. And I've incorporated that a lot in my stories and in my works that I've done is that there is always something else under the surface, not just subtext or things like that. There is always something you're not seeing. Something is not being shown to you. Something is not being told to you. And you can take it at face value. You easily can. A lot of people have, but you really shouldn't because there is always something hidden there that if you are not careful enough will become your undoing.
Man, well said. No, I understand that. It's really cool. So just given like all the films that you've done, these micro budget films, what what lessons have you learned creating these micro budget films?
Well, there are things that are like specifically movie related, and there are things that are life related when I learn from them. They're specifically movie related ones. First of all, pre-production never hurt anyone. Making movies is expensive, like it's really expensive. And each day of production is going to drain your wallet. Pre-production is not nothing, but it is genuinely not as expensive. It's like 100 times less expensive. So do more pre-production, do more training sessions with your actors, make sure they know their lines and all of that. Do more tests with your camera. Do everything you can in your pre-production because the minute you sorry about that. The minute you start your production and the minute you basically go into the location and you say the first action, the sounds and like the budget starts running out. It starts running out faster than you can think. And if you're not careful, if you're not prepared for it, you will be caught in a bad situation. That's the biggest thing. And but at the same time, know that cheaper isn't definitely better. Micro budget films, by the virtue of being micro budgeted, they have very small budgets. And so people who make them often think that, oh, cheaper is definitely better because when you do cheaper, you can do more things, like if you manage your budget like that. But cheaper isn't always better. A cheap camera rig that takes twice as time to set up than a slightly more expensive one will eat up your time, and your time on the movie set is definitely your biggest budget. Like, money is important, but your time is the thing that determines how much money you spend. And there are two things that kind of became life lessons. One of them is your team definitely matters. Nobody is going to make a movie on their own. If they think they can, I'm sorry to say it like this, it is a delusion. Nobody will make a movie on their own. At the very least, even if you do everything yourself, you need someone to stand in front of the camera. So your team definitely matters. Definitely be upfront with them in everything. Tell them about all of the issues that you might have, how many hours you expect them to work. At the same time, know that at this hierarchical movie set, you have to know when to push them and when to, I'm sorry, there is no easy way to say it, order them around. Because if you don't, at the same time, you will again lose time, lose your money, and your movie will be worse for it. And the last thing is that it's a trap that I myself am currently in my most recent movie project. And so I'm saying it with like the most recent experience of it. At some point, it needs to be done. At some point, your movie needs to be finished. You need to be like, okay, I'm done. It is at this moment done. It's ready to be shown to others. It's ready to be sent out. It's ready to be released, because otherwise it will never be done. There is always something to change. There is always that one last trick to do. There's always that, and it will drive you crazy. Like, it's not even a micro budget problem. Ridley Scott has practically lost his mind on Blade Runner. Every 2 years he releases a new version of it. Because it's never done. A movie is never done. But at some point you need to be like, okay, I'm done with it. You need to abandon it at some point.
Yeah, no, I understand that, because obviously, yeah, there is so much time and dedication it takes to make a film, and you need to have so much trust in your cast and your crew, and just making sure that everyone's on the same page when you're directing, so there's so many different aspects of it, especially if you're doing it on a micro budget, you're wearing so many different hats, you're directing and some, you're writing, sometimes you're even filming it, or maybe even acting in it, so you're kind of going around, but above all, as you mentioned, pre-production, that is so vital, because you want to make sure that everything is written down and you have a schedule and all that, and sticking with it, because the last thing you want is to just kind of stand around and like not know, like, oh wait, what do we shoot next, and then that's just wasting time. And as we said, like, time is money, so you're obviously wasting that if you're just standing around doing nothing. So it's always very important to have that schedule and have a plan. So thank you for sharing that. Getting into my next question, how do you merge creative writing with film direction?
Well, I think they are at the core very similar. At the end of the day, you are telling a story. Now, in creative writing, your tools are different. In directing, your tools are different. But at the end of the day, they are the same core, and at the same time, you can use their skills interchangeably. Like, if you're a film director and your main medium is film, when you want to write, the first thing I think all of the film directors will do is try to have a POV. Like, when you're writing a story that you know it's not going to be turned into a movie, your brain kind of works like a camera. It's like, okay, what am I going to show in this scene? Oh, there are things I don't want to show. I'm going to keep them out of the frame. How am I going to pace the movie and all of that? These are the same things you do in creative writing. Now, I went from writing to directing. I know a lot of people probably do it the other way, but I was originally a writer, and I was supposed to be a script writer, and then I went into directing. So the skill set that I took with me, at the end of the day, theme is the most important thing when you're trying to tell a story. Like, theme and intent are the most important things. And you learn that kind of intuitively when you're writing a story, when you are doing creative writing, when you're writing a script or a story, you kind of learn to do that. Okay, you have to have certain things in your story. There is no need to be any wasted moments in them. So when you move to directing, you just realize camera is just an extension of that. So your camera needs to have intent and purpose. Your camera needs to work in your theme. For example, even the most simplest of things, is your camera gonna move or not? Because that is a very important thing. It seems like, okay, why should I think about that? Is because you learn that in creative writing that what you do and what you don't have the same effect. What you show, what you tell have as much effect as what you don't show and don't tell. So whether or not you move your camera is a decision that you need to make with purpose. You can't basically do it subconsciously. It needs to be a conscious decision. Sorry, I was looking for that word, conscious. Excuse me, English is my second language, so sorry about the weird way I'm speaking. So it needs to be a conscious decision, and that's the most important thing that you learn from creative writing, is that subconscious decisions need to be made consciously. You cannot leave it to your subconscious to make those decisions for you. Everything in your story needs to come from someplace, and it is your job as the storyteller to learn what that place is. It can best be as easy as I saw it in another movie and it was cool. For example, I kind of have an aversion to camera movement. I don't really like camera movement. Most of the movies I made, I usually imply movement to cuts and editing rather than moving the camera. It's because I am a very big fan of Carol Reed, and The Third Man is one of the coolest looking movies in my opinion, and that movie really has an aversion to using movements. Carol Reed just didn't really like movement, and so I'm kind of borrowing that from him, but it can be as easy as this or as complex as going to a therapeutic journey of self-discovery to realize why don't you like camera movement. They are important to know.
Yeah. No, I understand like having that intent, like because every shot, like has something in it, and there's always that reasoning of like why that's happening. Why is the camera moving? Why is like that particular thing in the background, so there's always that intention, and it was, put in by the director, the production designer, so that's why I said, working with your team is so crucial, and making sure everyone's on the same page. And because every little thing can say something about your film, I don't know if you're familiar with the term mise en scène, but it basically,
Yes.
yeah, but like the things that you see in the background, the clothes that a character wears, the like the way a person speaks, or just like little things like that can help tell your story. Like you could pause like a movie, and like just from a still image you ask yourself like, okay, what's happening in this scene? And sometimes you could even tell like what's going to happen like later on, like if they're wearing like a certain color, like if they're wearing red, it can mean like death, or something like that, or like one of the famous examples was in The Godfather, the way that they used oranges to show that someone was going to die. I remember learning that in film school. So, so just stuff like that, I think is like really cool as a director, just like having those things, I mean, it's important to, the dialogue, like how a character says something and all of that, but, just the little things in the background can really help tell that story. So I think that's really cool.
Yes,
Could,
exactly.
yeah. Uh, do you think you could share some insights on you crafting narratives, or just like your approach to making your micro budget films?
Well, when it comes to crafting narratives, I think the most important rule, at least in my opinion, is you have to like it yourself. I know it sounds kind of idiotic. Actually, when I'm saying it, it makes me sound like an idiot to myself. But it's one of the most important lessons I've learned. Sometimes you want to tell a story because you need a message you need to get out. You need to say something, basically. But it should matter to you. You have to like it. You have to like that story. You have to like that narrative. Because if you don't like it yourself, how can you make other people like it? Now, I know there is a lot of arguments about art for the sake of art, and I am not dismissing them, but at the same time, you are creating art for an audience. Basically, you're doing something for someone else to see it, and you have to care about the thing you're making on a deep emotional level. So basically, if you don't like it, no matter how important your message is, it will not translate. No matter how poignant your message is, no matter how timely it is. And we can all probably name 1,000 movies made that have the right message, the right intent, the right time, but fell flat because the people behind it, they just wanted to use that message. They wanted to tell that without actually caring about it. It's the difference between, a good movie that has something to say and a masterpiece that is actually saying something. So that's the most important thing, in my opinion. You have to like what you are doing because, and this is when I kind of transition into movie making, because if you don't, you will give up on it easily. Movie making is a arduous task. Like, it's not easy. It's actually very hard. And the biggest thing is it's miserable and boring. Like, post-production, which is where I'm at with my movie, is a boring process. You have to watch the same movie. Now, even if it's a short movie, imagine watching the same 10 minutes 1,000 times. At some point, you will feel bored by it, and it's normal. But if you don't like it, you will give up on it. So you have to like it. And movie making is miserable. You have to go on different conditions. Even if you film your movie inside in a house, lights will make that house very hot. And heat will make you frustrated. So movie making is an extremely miserable thing and extremely long and extremely boring. And in order for you to be able to do it, you need passion. You need insanity, basically. You need to like something to the point that you're willing to know, except in the face of all logic, I'm actually doing this. Because if there is one thing movie making is not, is logical. It's never logical. Basically, not making a movie makes perfect sense. Physical sense, emotional sense, mental sense, relationship sense. Not making a movie makes all of those senses. So when you decide to make a movie, you are going against logic. So what are you going to replace that logic with? My answer is passion. You need to like it. You need to want to tell that story. You need to feel the insanity that if I don't tell this story, I'm incomplete. You need to have that much insanity in you, I think.
I mean, that's that's very well said. I mean, you do have to be a little crazy to be a filmmaker or even just like an artist in general, because it, like I said, it can take so much time and it could be such a very boring and tedious process, and other people may look in on that and it's like, why did you spend like so much time on this like little thing, when you could have been doing this or that, and it's just like you said, you're very just passionate about it. You just love it so darn much that you gotta make it, or else, like you said, you would feel incomplete. It's just a part of who we are, like that little
Yes.
creativity, that craziness inside of us, so we just have to do it because we just love it. So that was very well said. Thank you for sharing that. Um, we'll start wrapping up right now. So is there any last minute advice that you want to give to any up and coming artists or filmmakers out there that are listening to this?
I mean, To be honest, that takes a little bit of arrogance to think I have something to give, but I am not as, I don't know how I look in general. I am not as old as I look, neither as young as I look. I'm kind of in the middle. So I think I've seen enough younger artists, people who just start uni and try to get into art, that I think at the very least I can stop them from making a few mistakes that I've made. The biggest thing I think to any artist, that no matter what is your medium, it might be painting, it might be movies, it might be creative writing, it might be music, anything, build connections and friendships. The only thing you get out of university, out of communities of artists, is those connections and those friendships. At the end of the day, they will save you more than you can imagine. The trust you can put in someone else. In making a movie, when I made my movie, I had a lot of friends around me, people that I genuinely could trust, people who I actually told a couple of them, if something happens to me in the middle of the shoot, you have to finish it. You have to go on without me and finish the movie. And you need to have that level of respect and trust with them. And that comes from true, genuine friendship. There is nothing that can kind of replace that, in my opinion. And that is, as I said, the biggest resource you will have in the world of art. The world of art is ruthless, it is smaller than you think, and at the same time, it is dangerously shrinking every day. I don't want to get too defeatist about it, but with the rise of AI and things like that, it is becoming even more small than it used to be. It's getting dangerously small. And so you need to have that connection. And that connection isn't just good for like material things like making a movie. That connection can keep you in check, because the biggest thing that is the folly of all young artists and even older artists, looking at a few of them right now, is when you think like you've done it all, when you think you are done learning, you will never be done learning. You will learn more things, and you should learn more things. I don't mean just softwares and like technical things, even though do learn them, because they do come in handy from time to time. Even if you have people who will do them for you, you need to have a basic understanding of softwares as well. But the thing is that you need to keep learning, and people, friends who you can trust, who can look at you in the eye and say you are wrong, are important. If you don't have them, you will not just stagnate as an artist, you will probably never reach the growth that you need in order to become the best version of yourself. You need to have people who can look you in the eye and say, you, my friend, are wrong. And that is the biggest thing I think any artist need to have. Have connections, have friendships, and just in general, also be careful. This is getting more practical. Especially for writers, exposure is not an appropriate compensation for your work. I know a lot of young writers will get into a lot of bad deals because of exposure, and exposure is important, but not as much as you think. So be careful of people who will try to take advantage of you and your hunger for exposure. Uh, Again, this is also what friendship and connection can help you. If you have friends with you, they will tell you this person is taking advantage of your work. You need to find a different thing.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I've mentioned this in my other episodes before, that building that network and connections is so important, for people to not just support you, but as you said, kind of help steer you in like a direction, like when it comes to film, like if they have like opinions and stuff like that, you can take that into consideration onto like your next film, because, if you
Yes.
show it to like your family and stuff, obviously, they'll be very supportive of it. But if you show it to like other like fellow filmmakers and stuff, they can have like a totally different eye when it comes to it. Like I said, like the mise en scène, like just looking at those little things, and it's like, okay, so like maybe you could try to like do this instead or take out that, or so they'll just have like a totally different look at it, and then that kind of stuff you can then move on and make into your next film, or experiment with it. There's just so many, like we said, creativity towards it. So yeah, just building that connection, I think is very important. um so I mean, yeah, like I don't know if there's any well, I am curious, like so like the films that you've made are they like on like YouTube, or have you been submitting them to like film festivals, or like how is that going?
Well, I do have almost all of the things I've done on a YouTube channel, but I don't really recommend checking them. A lot of them are early movies, and early movies are just bad. There is no way around them. They're just poorly made. And so the biggest project I've done is still under post production. It's not done yet. And when it's done, I probably again will shout it from the rooftops that I've made this. But at the moment, a lot of the things I've done as a director, I've done a lot of things as like actor, writer, assistant director, set designer, and all of that. That, to be honest, I should probably have a better handle on where they end up. Like, but I don't know. They might be out there. You might see me in an Iranian short movie that I have completely forgotten that I've been in. But the thing is that my own movies, all of them are on YouTube, but they're not good. And they are in Persian. So that's the biggest probably limiter of them, is that they are in Persian because, well, I made them in Iran, and yeah, that's it. The biggest movie I'm making right now is one called The Dawn Rises, and it's in post production. It is nearing the end of post production, and hopefully in a couple of months I actually have at the very least, the first releasable cut of that.
Thank you for tuning in to the Troubled Artists podcast. Have a great day.